Yes, welcome to round 3 of the SuperCoach365 podcast of the National Rugby League. Ryan and Tommy back with you here to talk everything coming up this weekend. And Tommy, it's moving week in a SuperCoach sense because prices start to change and really it's game on from here.
Yeah, g'day Ryan. The game gets real this week, doesn't it? I guess the financial aspect of it is a big part of it, and a part I probably haven't been that good at in the past few years, I don't think. So yeah, it's a big week this week in terms of setting yourself up for the whole year.
I've been playing for points the last couple of weeks, but it gets a little bit tricky now, doesn't it, as break-evens and cash rises and falls start to take effect. So we're going to talk all of that coming up on the podcast tonight, as well as a bit of news around the league as we come to you on Team List Tuesday, of course. We're going to get some of your thoughts as well in our listener Q&As, all before our team updates, our captain's calls, talking points, as well as all of that, as we say, as we usually do here on the podcast. Coming up as well as that, actually, let's start with a bit of housekeeping. While you're here, if you are listening on the podcasts, 5-star reviews, thumbs up, all of that. And if you are on YouTube, leave us a couple of comments and please subscribe. We're trying to get this push towards 1,000 subscribers. I think we're about 650 at the moment. So get us closer to 1,000. And of course, we wouldn't be doing this without the proud support of TopSport, who are back on board this year. So thank you to Tristan and the team. And if you are having a punt on the footy this weekend, or if you have been, hope you've been doing so with topsport.com.au. As always, gamble responsibly. Tommy, let's before we do get into news and impacts of that upon round 3, let's talk a bit of ranks and scores from round 2. Why don't we? And for you and I both, we managed to avoid much of the carnage from last week.
Yeah, mostly. I think Kalen Ponga was my only sort of blip, but you can't do much about that one. First tackle of the game, basically, he was gone. Top 2% I am at the moment. Pretty happy with that. I mean, just after 2 weeks, it's pretty early doors, and there's not much between top and bottom, but still good to be up there early.
Yeah, I was much the same as you. I went around Ponga for obvious reasons. I don't think he's a good rugby league player. Look, I don't wish ill health upon anyone, but I just wouldn't pick him in the first place. There's better options there for mine. Top 1% after 2 weeks, season rank of 1688. And a good score last week as well. I think it was upwards of 1,100, 1,200. I don't know. I think it was 12-13 actually last week. So managed to steer away from a couple of those other cheapies. Nickel Klukstar, Jackson Ford. Who else we have? Brandon Smith, of course, who's a topic of conversation tonight. So look, sometimes you get lucky in this game, and last week was one of those weeks for me.
Yeah, there was a few, I wouldn't say traps, because you're not to know these things going to happen, but some of these, I guess, boom players who went on to the last few weeks, Ponga, Brandon Smith, Jackson Ford, just absolutely blew up in your face, didn't it? And I know a few people I saw on Twitter owned many of those sort of players who got below 20.
Yeah.
So they would have been in for some rough red arrows, I guess, yesterday.
And of course, you mentioned moving week, and it's all about stacking cash and trading down in a sense to find the cheapies and those with low break-evens. So we're going to talk plenty of break-evens tonight, but one man who will have to be a consideration, not this week, not yet anyways, Nicho Hynes. He's still not ready to go for round 3. So one of those players, though, that we've sort of got an eye on for next week, and trades this week will dictate how close we are to getting Nicho in for round 4.
Yeah, it's going to be the big question of next week. If he's true to his word and he's back in round 4, they have the Dragons, then they have the Warriors, then a bye. So, I mean, you can wait another 3 weeks and get him after that bye, but Dragons and Warriors on paper seem like decent fixtures to me.
Yeah. A couple of questions around Nicho as well in the talking points segment, which we'll get to at the back end of the podcast. So stick around for that. Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's kick us off, though. Round 2, and we'll talk a couple of more news items amongst all of this as well, but round 3. We're not going back.
Flying by already, isn't it?
Round 3, yeah, in fact. Okay, round 3, of course, getting underway Thursday night. Sea Eagles and the Eels, the old rivalry, reignited here at 4 Pines Park. And big news from a SuperCoach sense is Josh Schuster is back on deck for the Sea Eagles, and he was the most popular player heading into round 1 before we learned of his fate with injury.
He was, and it's good. They probably only thought it was a 1 or 2 week injury, and that's how it turned out to be, which is good for those who have him, myself included. 29% of teams currently owning him. I wonder how many have brought him in just this week, or how many started with him. Turbo also back, or Manly are back, so that's a big plus for Turbo owners, having a weapon like that back in Tier 17.
Yeah, no need to rush into Turbo or Garrick just yet. I don't think so anyway. their price rises won't change until the round 4, because obviously with the round 2 bye, we get an extra week to have a look at them. Particularly Turbo, I think he was in first gear that game against the Bulldogs, and that's scary for 2 reasons, right? If you're owning him, it's scary because he went off after 65 minutes. He did come back on, but you want to see him out there for 80 as an owner. But as a non-owner, it's scary as well because he still managed to pump 100 and he was probably on one leg. So I think it's a great week for us this week to sit back and watch Tom Trbojevic.
Yeah, I mean, I've already got him, so I'm happy to watch him as an owner, to be honest. I'm too scared to play without him. And what I saw in round 1 backs that up. Yeah. I agree with you that he didn't look at his best, but the fact that he could still get such a high score, not at his best, speaks volumes really. And back at home this week again, I think he's almost a vice-captain option.
Yeah, of course. How could I forget our captain's call? It's going bonkers again this year on our Instagram. So we will talk captains tonight and on our socials tomorrow as well. For the Eels, though, Maker Sivo was charged with dangerous contact last week against the Sharks, but he's free to play, and he's a big in because he's got a couple of tries last week and looked very dangerous on their left side. For us, though, looking at the SuperCoach angles here, it's all about the back row, isn't it? Jermaine Hopgood, another massive score last week. To go with Bryce Cartwright and Matt Dury, who keep doing a job, and it's that Eels back row that we're playing with here.
Yeah, it is. They're popular back row. I mean, Hopgood is probably a bit different to Dury and Cartwright. I think Hopgood already has established himself as arguably the best 2RF in the SuperCoach game.
Yeah.
Two weeks in, we saw a different side of him the other night with his ball playing and attacking involvement. We knew he could do a workhorse role, but that other side he showed us was awesome. And he reminds me a bit of IPAP in 2021 in SuperCoach. He just burst onto the scene randomly and he's become one of the best players in the game. So, yeah, he's a must-hold. But then Dury and Cartwright, I guess you're sort of waiting for their break-evens to get up. Would you agree?
Yeah, so just on the break-evens, Hopgood, I think this is near a lowest I've ever seen. Taylor May last year about 120 or minus 120. This is a minus 139. So this bloke could make $250,000 this week if he pumps out a third consecutive 100. But on those other two, Cartwright at minus 49 and Dury minus 7. Look, it'll be interesting to see who makes away when Madison comes back, and we're expecting him back next week. For SuperCoach's sake, I'm hoping it's Dury on the right side, just because obviously that break-even will start to get a little bit higher as from next week. We've got to start planning for life without one of these two back rowers, because Madison, you'd think he'd just come straight back into the starting team.
And I think that's fair enough. You know, I didn't have either of these guys. I know you have both, and I think it's probably a wise move, but you were never buying them with the plan to keep them all year. You knew there was, I guess, an expiration date and that you were going to trade up to people, and you're probably just going to have to trade up in the next few weeks. So, like you said, just start planning for who you're moving on to.
Okay, we'll leave that game there, though, because importantly, I think the best team in the National Rugby League, the history of it, they play Friday night, 6 p.m, of course. Who am I speaking about? Speaking about the Dolphins. Who else? Back-to-back wins for the Dolphins to start the year. No one saw that coming. But they head to Newcastle here, and the Knights, they are depleted. I think they could be without up to 10 of their regular frontliners. Obviously, Jaden Brayley headlines that list, along with Tyson Frizzell, Jacob Saifidi suspension, and I think there's another one there, Kalen Ponga, on that list as well. $1.50 the Dolphins, topsport.com.au, $2.60 Newcastle. The Dolphins, such a short price here, second week or third week away from home.
Yeah, I mean, if you said this price a fortnight ago, you would have thought it's crazy. But with everything that has happened, the Dolphins, 2 great wins. The Knights, their side is somewhat unrecognisable this week with all the injuries and suspensions and whatnot. It's hard to make a case for the Knights. And I think you are right. The Dolphins are statistically probably the best team ever in the NRL. They're only undefeated team of all time in the competition. So hold on to that while you can. And I think they'll make it 3 straight this week.
Just for the Knights, the shining light has probably been Lachlan Fitzgibbon on that left side. I think he scored back-to-back scores of 70. Without those 2 tries, obviously those scores have been inflated by his attacking involvements, but a break-even of -8. Someone that we're probably not playing with, someone that we're not looking to go to, but some shining lights for the Knights in a SuperCoach sense at least. Some team news, though, for the Dolphins. We're going to see a new Dolphin enter the fray this week, Cody Nikorima. He will replace the suspended Jeremy Marshall-King, who misses 2 games there. So let's have a good look at Cody this week. Dual position eligible player as well, so could come in handy around Origin time. Ray Stone is back for those who held from round 1. That obviously sees Mason Teague relegated to 18th man. The Hammer, Asako, Mark Nichols, even Isaiah Katoa, they're going to be popular trade-in targets this week, given their low break-evens.
Yeah, I think the Hammer has been the story so far in Supercoach for the Dolphins. He'd always, I guess, had that attacking element to his game, so fast, but he never really had any base on Supercoach. And I think he's improved that a little bit. I know he did score 2 tries the other day. One of them was off a kick, though, so that didn't make much of an impact to his score. So I think he has been a surprise packer, and I'm happy I do have him. Just back on Newcastle, their team is obviously dismantled this week. We haven't heard of a lot of these guys, but they're fringe first graders. I think one for draft maybe is Leo Thompson. He's been playing quite well coming off the bench. He gets the start in the 13 jumper this week. I think he's probably good for, north of 50. So if you're in a big draft comp, he'll be on the waiver wire. Just maybe scoop him up.
Is he dual position?
He is just a front rower, I think. So that is obviously a bit of a negative. And I'm in a draft where I'm versing you this week, so I don't know why I'm telling you any of this, but...
I don't need your help anyway, mate. I don't need your help. I'm high-flying in that competition. Anyway, enough about that. Anything else here from... you say you like the look of Hammer. Obviously, he's found the try scorers list in the last couple of weeks with topsport.com.au. He's been paying backers, and maybe tell us why, Tommy. You went a week early on the Hammer. You obviously saw something against the Roosters round 1. You brought him in for week 2, maybe a week early in hindsight, but it's paid dividends. Tell us why you did that and why the Hammer over Asako, who was another popular trade-in target.
I probably just like the involvement of the Hammer in week 1, and I guess I've seen a lot of Asako over time where he can have these rocks and diamonds moments, and I think we saw a few of them the other night against the Raiders. So I just thought there was maybe a little bit more upside with the Hammer, a little bit of unknown of what we're going to get, and look, it's only been 2 weeks. He could easily come out this week and sort of revert back to not high scoring, but he was only 300 and something K at the same time. So you weren't breaking the bank to get him. $1.50 the Dolphins, Newcastle $2.60. I'd probably rather back the Dolphins at that price, but what do you think?
Yeah, just on the Hammer, $2.30 anytime, topsport.com.au. That's probably the bet there. You think if the Dolphins win, Hammer makes it 3 weeks in a row on the try scorers list. The wingers, popular targets there, about even money. So, look, if you're having a play on that game, do so responsibly, and there is some good value there around the try scorers for the Dolphins, I feel. Let's move on. The primetime game here, Friday nights, the Roosters and South Sydney. Now, the Roosters, they burnt plenty of people in the first 2 weeks. Sam Walker, probably the exception to that rule. He's been very good at that halfback slot in the absence of Nicho Hynes. But around him, James Tedesco, Brandon Smith, probably the chief culprit here that I'm talking about. But I mean, the Roosters, they snuck home to a win against the Warriors last week, but they're just not the Supercoach team that we've come to expect or that we've come to hope to see from them.
No, they're not. And 2 years running, we kind of had that same fallout from the first couple of Roosters games. They just haven't hit the ground running. Like you say, Walker's been great. And maybe we're being a little bit harsh on Teddy. I mean, the other day, if Suaalii passes to him, and if he keeps a hold of that other line break, that's 2 tries right there. So it could have easily been a score close to 100. So he wasn't far away from being a good scorer, and it was still over 50. So it wasn't like he got nothing. But Brandon Smith, though, like you mentioned there, I think we've coined the term, the people who have him as mice. They took the bait of the cheese.
Wow. Yeah, look, I love it. And to be honest, you know what I love even more so? Not the fact that we're going to sit here and toot our own horns, but when you make these big calls to go against these highly owned players, geez, it feels rewarding, doesn't it? Just as much as it's the same as jumping on a pod 1 week early, going against these 40, 50% owned players from the start, it is so rewarding. And if we were able to help anyone with that, I'm really glad that we were, because he was so highly owned. And the fact that we did go against him, it took a risk and it's paid off.
Yeah, so far. And I mean, he just looks a bit battered and bruised already, doesn't he? I think he's playing this week. He's named in the 9, which is good for those who are still holding him. Would you suggest those who are still holding him to get rid of him? They do have a bye next week as well. So, he hasn't taken advantage of the the good start to the year in the first 2 rounds.
Yep.
Now they have Souths. Now they have a bye. Kind of hard to keep him, isn't it?
I don't think they win this week against Souths. $2.15 outsiders, topsport.com.au. The Rabbits $1.70. This one, Allianz Stadium, Friday night. Just on the cheese, his break-even's 90 this week. Tedesco, look, maybe a little bit unlucky against the Warriors if passes went his way, but his break-even 135. And even Daniel Tupou, who I know has been touted as a gun centre winger option there around the likes of Brento and Valentine Holmes, break-even of 88. So you look at those first 2 weeks for the Roosters, geez, they look good on paper, but they proved anything but. So I think all three of those players are very easy sells this week.
Yeah, it did blow up in owners' faces. And like we say, a hard game here. They've barely beaten South the last few years and they've got pumped by them many times. So as someone who has owned a couple of Roosters players so far this year, I don't go into this game thinking they're going to get great scores. So I think that, it's a big sell week for the Roosters with the bye next week.
Okay, big sell there, and maybe we're buying a few of these next players here from the Melbourne Storm. They head up to the Gold Coast on Saturday afternoon, and after, it wasn't an impressive performance on the field against the Dogs. They got towed up, really, but some of those bigger names and some of those pod plays around the 2RFs, I'm thinking of Eli Katoa and Jerome Hughes at halfback. Harry Grant continues to do a job at hooker like we expected he would. Eli Katoa, minus 28 break even. He's going to be a popular trading target, I think, this week. People either cashing down some of those other options or sideways moves from Teague Wilton or Regan Butcher. It's an easy move to Eli Katoa. And the Storm, they're going to be improved this week, you think, given the team list that they've trotted out tonight.
Well, they couldn't go any worse because I can't remember the last time I watched Melbourne in Melbourne just capitulate down 26-0 or something to the Bulldogs. That was unbelievable viewing, really. But yeah, Eli Katoa, I guess you have the decision to make if you kind of go cheaper from maybe like a Taumalolo who hasn't been that impressive or a Teague Wilton perhaps. There's probably not much point, I don't think, going from a real cheapie to Katoa unless you're looking for points, but I wouldn't really bother personally. They did get a few names back here, though, like you say. Justin Olam is back. Xavier Coates is back. So their side is looking a bit stronger this week. So I'm still happy to be with players like Grant. And I know you've been with Hughes so far, and he sort of repaid you the other night in that second half.
Jeez, it was looking shaky early, but I said to you at halftime, I was like, look, I think he was on about 15 or 20 points at the time, but I said to you, mate, I'm not even deterred yet because Melbourne, they were going to get possession, they were going to come back, and Hughes and Grant were going to be the instigators of all of that. And Hughes just went bang, 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 couple of line break assists to that man Katoa, scored a try himself, and that's what you get with these running halves like Jerome Hughes, like Adam Dewey to an extent, like Nico Hines even. The points will come, and you just have to persist in moments where they look like they're not going to. Just for the Storm as well, Tarek Sims expected to come back here alongside the Tui Kamikamica as well, so that'll offset the loss of Nelson Asofa Solomona. They were just getting rolled through the middle of the Storm, so that's a couple of big ins, those big bodies.
Absolutely, and they need it. And knowing Craig Bellamy, as we sort of do over the past 20 years, he'll be livid with that performance, and you'd have to imagine they come out humming this week against the Titans, who were pretty disappointing against Saints. I thought they were winning 12-2 and it looked good, but they conceded 32 points in 50 minutes, I think it was, and kind of like the Titans we've come to expect over the past, since they joined the comp almost, but it was just more of the same, and I don't know, disappointing from a team point of view, but I thought David Fafita, again, very involved, and I like what I'm seeing from him this year, another score around 70.
Yeah, a couple of late points there. I think he had an effective offload and a forced dropout in the last 30 seconds, so that was 10 extra points that you probably weren't expecting to get. But in saying that, no, his involvement has been good. That Storm expected to get the job done here, $1.45, $2.75 the Titans. Look, I guess the good news from this, as bad as Khan Pereira has been, even with the try the other day, I think he got 35, as bad or as... maybe it's being harsh, bad, but he just doesn't have the base. And centre wing cheapies, you need them to be scoring tries to have any impact in making cash. He scored one the other day. He retains his spot here above or ahead of Jojo Fafita. So that's the one positive here. He looks to have absolutely nailed down that left wing with Phil Sami shifting to the right wing, we think, and Brian Kelly back in the centres. So that's the one positive after two low scores from AKP.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Got 40, but still a very disappointing score with the try. I think he was on 31 at half time, so he only got 9 points in that second half. So yeah, he's not really rewarding owners at all. I guess you might make some money in the coming weeks. Minus 6.5 is the line for the Storm. I think I'd rather be with them at the line. I just think they'll be bouncing back this week.
Happy to follow you in there. Just on centre wing cheapies very quickly before we move to the next game. Will Warbrick, again, another score around mid-30s or low 40s. We said this last week, didn't we? Without a try, the Melbourne right wingers, just you can't expect them to be pumping out any high scores, really. Hopefully he can change that this week. He's shown enough, I think, to keep that right wing spot, and I wouldn't be trading sideways from a Warbrick or a Khan Pereira, not this week anyway. I think while their break-evens are manageable, it just takes one try, really. So just persist, let them score a try, or fingers crossed they do score a try. Stick with them, because there are other options there at centre wing. I even think of Michael Cheekamp from the Rabbitohs in the previous game. Centre wing, 2RF eligible, 230k with a break-even of minus 28. People will be thinking of doing this. I'm just going to say hang off. Just persist a couple of more weeks.
Yeah, there's not much point in these sideways trades from people who are 200k. But he probably isn't the player I thought he might have been, Warbrick. But it's only been 2 games. And they haven't really been suitable games for the outside backs, either of those for the Storm. So just wait and see. I agree.
Okay, speaking of non-suitable games, what about that game in the wet last week, the Broncos and the Cowboys? The Broncos eventual winners, but when you have a team full of Cowboys like I did or I do, it wasn't a great watch. Expected to bounce back here against the Warriors. They return to Queensland Countryback Stadium. $1.33 the Cowboys, $3.35 the Warriors, who were brave enough against the Roosters. I think they'll be one of those teams this year that will be in the contest most weeks. But the Cowboys here, they'll be looking to bounce back on their own track.
Yeah, they will. Pretty disappointing the other night. Drinkwater, a score of 1. He was in the minuses before recounts. So
yeah,
pretty you just don't expect that. He only had a sin bin, but still the involvement was very low. But like you said, it was wet, so excuses there. But he is out for 3 weeks now anyway. So you get to see Tom Chester. He comes into the fullback role. Were you expecting that, or were you expecting to see Val Holmes maybe get a shot back at 1?
I was probably thinking Val would move. And I don't know if it's better or worse for his SuperCoach stocks that he stays on the left. I probably think it's better. Like, we saw we could do it centre last year. Just keeps the continuity on that left side with Dearden. Taulagi on his outside. Chester is supposedly supposed to be a bit of a gun, so we'll see how he goes, gets his chance this week. I think what it means, though, is Brendan Elliott. Geez, he must be on the absolute scrap heap up there, because he was 18th man last week, Brendan Elliott. But can't get a go here, even with that suspension to Drinkwater. So, Chester, we get a good look at him. Speaking of draft, could be one top of the waivers tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Also, just on the Cowboys quickly, Jeremiah Nanai, good score last week, 74, but he did score twice. His base score so far this year, 29 and 26 in 80 minutes.
Yeah.
So if he's not scoring a try, I think it was the same last year. He just doesn't do anything really except score some tries. So I don't think he's sort of a trap, I think, Nanai.
Yeah, we come to expect that with him, haven't we? Just some of those other Cowboys names and their break-evens this week, the more popular players. Ruben Cotter, 64. Reece Robson, 76. Nanai, that man you mentioned there, 89 break-even. Valentine Holmes, 98. Dearden, that I was playing with, 103, so that's getting to worrying territory there. And Drinkwater, who is suspended, 155. So, look, this Golden Cowboys run we spoke of, it's unfortunate that Drinkwater is going to miss that, because I still think that, look, -1, I'll put the hand up, or a 1 as it turned out. Look, not the score you want from your fullback, but there are genuine excuses there why he wasn't the attacking player. He's a 5'8". He's a 5'8" wearing 1. They didn't get to attack. It was wet, miserable conditions. This 6-week run was going to be where it sat nicely for him. It's unfortunate he misses 3 or 4 of those games. So the attacking Cowboys, they're going to have some work to do now to change our minds and to convince some others as well.
Yeah, are the Cowboys the closet Roosters? Are they just, this run on paper just hasn't eventuated?
Yeah.
I think, are they almost in the same boat where you look to get rid of some of them? They don't have a buy for a long time. I guess that is in their corner. But I don't know. The jury's out, isn't it?
It is. And they'll have to be doing good things this weekend to change my mind back to the team that I thought that they could have been. Just on the Warriors before we move on, Wade Egan, -44 break even. He is going to be a very, very popular trading target this week. You think of Brandon Smith or Tanner Boyd, players that a lot of super coaches are playing with at number 9. It's an easy shift to Wade Egan. He's expected to make a stack of cash this week. So to Braden Williami with a -3 break even. Unfortunately for Jackson Ford, he is out this week. So his break even of 18 will have to stand over until next week. But probably the pick of the Warriors players in the first 2 weeks has been Tohu Harris. I think he's averaged 80 in rounds 1 and 2 combined, and every chance to hit that score again this week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, Mr. Consistent. And I mean, if you're looking for someone just to anchor your 2RFs and just churn out scores, he won't play Origin either, being from New Zealand, which is good during that middle period of the year. So he definitely has some selling points. Do we know anything about this fullback, Tuapiki? I've not heard of him at all. CNK's out with the head knock, and Metcalf is still injured, so they've gone to, I guess, their third string fullback.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's on the SuperCoach game. I assume he is, and he's probably 200k.
We'll be looking at him. No, I haven't heard of him. So maybe head on over and listen to the Rugby League Guru. He might be able to help you out. He's all over these fringe first graders, is the gurus. So anything there from a try scorer's perspective? We're just happy to sit back. For what it's worth, I've checked the weather here. Townsville, 32 degrees, chance of thunderstorm. It's going to feel like 37. So that ball is going to be very slippery Saturday afternoon. I think I'm going to stay right out of this and just sit back and watch and hope that the Cowboys can do something.
Yeah, they've let me down 2 weeks in a row. I think I'll just watch it as well. It's hard to make a case.
Okay, now rare that we see the Broncos on a Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. They take on the Dragons. So two of the more impressive teams, you'd have to say, from round 2, head-to-head here. Broncos back at home. The only change to the side is Jesse Arthurs, coming in to replace the injured Corey Oates. For the Dragons, they're the same 17 that got the job done over the Titans. The Broncos, heavy favourites here, topsport.com.au. $1.28 head-to-head, $3.70 the Dragons. And that line, as I look at it here, we're looking at a 11.5 start. The Dragons getting it, $1.90 each of 2.
Yeah, what's not to like with the Broncos, is it? I guess we've known for a few years they had a lot of these young guns and they're going to come through, and I think it's finally happening this year. And getting Reece Walsh back has been awesome for them. 105 last week, which is probably the performance of the round in terms of just to the naked eye. He played so well, I thought.
Huge.
And the Broncos also, you just look at the next few weeks, Dragons, Dolphins, Tigers, Raiders, Gold Coast. With all due respect to Dolphins, that's 5 very winnable games. There'll be favourites in all 5 of those. It might be time to jump on some of these Broncos players.
Just put some respect on the Dolphins' name, thanks, mate. Form team of the competition. No, I agree with you. The Broncos, they're running hot, and even, what are they? They're 2 from 2 now. They went down to Penrith, got the job done there. So that's as good as win as you'll have, in any round, let alone round 1 away to the Premiers. So super impressive last week on both sides of the ball. How good is their defence? We're not going to sit here and talk about defence at large on this attacking-based podcast, really, but Brisbane's defence, it's just keeping them in games for a long period, winding teams down, and then they get to attack.
Absolutely, and just to add to that good run I just spoke of, then their next 4 games are at Suncorp as well, and they're their hometown team. They love playing at Suncorp. The big crowd gets behind them. I think that helps their scoring massively. So you've got Reece Walsh coming off a massive score. Players like Teddy with the bye next week, Drinkwater suspended. Big chance for Walsh to be, I guess, highly owned this week. Same with Ezra Mam, I think. I think he's got a massive case as well. Matty Burton hasn't been that good this year. You got Ponga injured, Munster injured. The door's opening for those two, as well as some other players such as Farnworth.
Yeah, a couple of names there that will figure in our Trading Places segment, no doubt. And just on them, Walsh obviously won't get that price rise until the end of next week, but given those fixtures, you'd be hesitant to hold off, and an easy downgrade from James Tedesco, like you say. For the Dragons, we must very quickly mention Tyrell Sloan. I think he was super impressive. Scored that late try, but was involved in a couple of other good things for the Dragons, and much like Walsh and the Sea Eagles and the Panthers as well, they'll cop their price rise at the end of round 4. So Sloan, another one, much like the Hammer, names that we floated about in the preseason, He could be a trade down target in the weeks to come. He's going to make a bit of cash, you'd think, especially if he can back up that performance against the Titans here against the Broncos.
Yeah, he was a great performance to come back from that effort in the Charity Shield, wasn't it? His confidence would have been shot, but he did well the other night. Jack Bird, I thought was pretty good, 70 points, only 47 minutes played. I can't remember if he was injured or if that's going to be a rotation for him, but I quite liked him playing at lock. So 70 points in 47 minutes is pretty good. I know you're a fan of his for a long time. So I don't know, what would your, I guess, prospects be with him in SuperCoach terms?
Yeah, I think I even said to you a few weeks ago that for middle forwards, like if he's playing lock, some of his attacking output, tackle busts, offloads, etc., they're better than anyone. Like you do the numbers, they're better than anyone, better than Cam Murray. He did have a try assist, line break assist as well for Blake Laurie, so there was some attacking output, but that's what you're going to get from Birdie. Like he's a one-time 5/8 fullback now playing in 13. He does have the ball skills, and I think that's why he is in that jersey. He did have a rest after about 25 minutes. I think he came off. But again, like you say, ball in hand, there's always going to be opportunities there for Jack Bird. That game, as we say, Saturday night, rounding us out there on Super Saturday. The first of two games, though, on Sunday is the Bulldogs back at Belmore against the West Tigers. A West Tigers team which was just absolute dog shit last week against Newcastle, must be said. One of the worst, without exaggeration, one of the worst 80 minutes of football I've ever watched. It doesn't get any easier for them here either because Dane Laurie's out with a knee injury. Tommy Talau's out. Sean Bloor is back from his concussion. But Isaiah Papali'i is suspended as well. So look, some come back, but they are losing plenty, I should say, here with IPAP out and fullback Dane Laurie. He's probably been one of their best in the losing efforts.
Yeah, it's amazing what a difference a few weeks can make. Before the season, I thought they could challenge for the top 8, and that you're not wrong. That the other day against Newcastle was just pathetic, really. Newcastle weren't even good, and they still managed to hold on with 12 players. Yeah, Tigers were awful. No Papali'i this week does not help. Away to the Dogs, who have just come off of beating the Storm. And it's going to be 36 degrees in Sydney on Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
So if they get behind, I don't see much fight in them.
Geez, there'll be a few beers sunk on that hill at Belmore, won't there? 36 degrees. They'll be singing, they'll be dancing in the aisles if the Bulldogs can live up to the hype here. Look, these were probably two of the most hyped teams in the off-season, weren't they? The Dogs and the Tigers. So we'll get to see who's made of what Sunday afternoon. Just on the Dogs, same squad that down Melbourne last week. So Pangai Jr. has to wait another week. Josh Reynolds is in the squad. Just a bit of... Look, I read this on Twitter, so I don't know if it's 100% true. It could be all bullshit. But I think it is, and I'll have to check. I'm going to say it anyway. It's spooky. It would be 2,023 days to the day since he was chaired off at Belmore in his last NRL game there. He then moved to the West Tigers. 2023 days in the year 2023, coming back to Belmore to face the Tigers. I have to check that, but geez, that would be something. He is in the extended squad. Whether or not he gets a run here, I don't know, but there would be a little bit of romanticism about that. Anything else here, Tommy, from a Supercoach sense?
Yeah, I guess we've got to mention Jacob Preston. Massive last week, coming onto the edge against Melbourne Storm. He finished with 83 or 84 points. He's only, I think, second to Hopgood in terms of how much money he's going to make this week. He's named to start again in the back row in what looks like a great fixture. So he's pretty hard to not buy this week, isn't he?
He is. Break-even of minus 51. A couple of these other popular Bulldogs that will be traded in this week. Jacob Kiraz, minus 36 break-even. Paul Alamotti, minus 12. So look, names there that we have spoken about at different occasions, particularly Alamotti. At the other end of the spectrum for the Dogs, though, Kickout, 130 break-even. Burton, much the same there. So two names for the Dogs that carried a lot of that hype in the preseason. Burton and Kickout, they just haven't performed, but take the good with the bad. Preston, like you say, they're minus 51 break-even. He will be very popular, particularly if he can hold that spot even when Pangai comes back.
Yeah, 100%. It's a pretty good show of faith that he's been put into the back row, and Raymond for Mariner moved to lock. And there's still some good players on the bench there. So good signs for Preston and his owners. What about Jacob Graz? 148 last week against the Storm. Like, I know some random players go big every now and then, but 148 it's like turbo levels.
That's incredible. We sat here and watched this together, and to be honest, I'd had a few schooners, so I couldn't actually tell you like how impressive he was on the night. But I just remember you told me, he was 80 at half time. I was like, what? Look, it takes special players, like, as you say, Turbo. This is Garrick-like, particularly at centre wing. He will make a stack of cash, you'd think, this week as well. I think he's a tricky price, though. I think he's around 550k, so he's borderline premium. Like, that's Suoli'i territory, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not a cheapie, He's not, a diamond in the rough. He's up against some really good players in that price range. But, hey, the Tigers and the Warriors the next 2 weeks, he could definitely go big again.
Okay, and for the Tigers, very quickly as well, late try to Stefano Utukumano last week. That would have pleased owners. Break even. Yeah, Tommy's praying there. Tommy's one of the beneficiaries of that break even now of minus 24, and didn't he need that? AD, 35 break even as well. So, look, two of the more popular Tigers, they're performing despite the side not.
Yeah, I was going to say that Dewey the other day, just watching rugby league, he played terribly, to be honest with you, but he still turned out 56. So that's the sign of a good SuperCoach player when you don't play well and you still score near enough to 60. So I'm happy to still have him. Pretty much everything the Tigers do, which isn't much, but everything they do goes through him and he kicks goals. So I guess he's the best of a bad bunch at West Tigers. And
probably unlucky not to be more as well with that Talau. Did he end up getting that assist? I'm not sure, but if he didn't, he probably could have. Okay, just very quickly there, that one with topsport.com.au. The Bulldogs, firm favourites, $1.32. West Tigers outsiders at $3.40. The line, Canterbury giving away 9.5 at $1.85 there. Okay, last game of the round. This one's Sunday evening. The Raiders up against the Sharks. The Raiders abysmal against the Dolphins, it must be said. Led 12-0. Capitulated in the wet and failed. Not much here to mention from the SuperCoach sense. I guess Pasami Saolo is the one name that we can pick out here with a break-even of minus 15. Look, he gets another go with Josh Papali'i, who's still on the sidelines. That's probably the highlight for the Raiders, and that's probably not saying a hell of a lot.
It's all very boring, isn't it? Even watching the other night, we watched that game together, Dolphins-Raiders, and I think abysmal is harsh. It was more just very dull. We didn't play badly, but we didn't do anything. Very disappointing. And, it's reflected on SuperCoach. None of their players you would bother with, really. I mean, Tarpanay can churn out some good scores, but other than that, none of their backs do anything. It is pretty disappointing. They come up against Cronulla, who a lot of points in them. Last week scored 30 against the Eels. I thought they were very impressive in attack, not so in defence. But in SuperCoach, we probably don't really care about that.
Yeah, and the headline, obviously, by Britton Nikora. That's how we're saying his name this year, isn't it? Nikora. Trindle, minus 54 break even. Look, would you trade him in this week knowing that Nico Hines, by his own admission, is probably going to be ready by next week? There is a cash grab there. If Nico's out another week and then they have the bye, like it's round 3 this week. Nico's saying he's back round 4. I think they have the Warriors round 5, bye round 6. Would you almost put Nico on ice if you're the Sharks? And it's a decision that they're going to have to make, but one that SuperCoach is going to have to make this weekend as well, with Braden Trindle minus 54 break even, projected to make 80k with a score of 37. So if that scores upwards of 37, he could make more than 100,000. Would you do it?
I don't know. Look, it's great cash grab, no doubt about it. Probably going to make 100k, but you're going to have to get rid of him next week if Hines plays.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, do you agree? It's too much. 2 trades. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah, there's 2 trades to Hines. So it's, again, what's the value of a trade? You'd want to be making 150k. If you're making 100, maybe it's slightly not worth it. Okay, that's it there in terms of the games 1 to 8 this weekend. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to come back and do our trading places, our team updates, and then we'll answer a couple of your questions as well.
Are you you suffering from frequent bouts of bet limititis?
Try TopSport. Other providers may significantly limit your bets, causing frustration and angst. TopSport clears that blockage by welcoming big and winning punters, giving you fast, effective relief on those bigger bets. Overcome bet limititis by downloading the TopSport app today. Brought to you by TopSport. Feel the excitement.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Okay, let's move on to our Trading Places segment. We're going to start with our teams. This week, Tommy, why don't you kick us off? In fact, we're going to start with our trades. Kick us off. You're going to make a couple this week, or are you making a little bit more than that?
Yeah, I'm using my first boost of the year, and I think you alluded to it last week. It's probably going to be a pretty popular option. Yeah. With all the price changes, moving week, as you called it. So I've done 3 trades. Teddy is out. As I said earlier, I just think it's time to get rid of some of your stocks in the Roosters. Hard game this week, then a bye. He was unlucky the other day, but I'm just going to go to Latrell instead. Yep. He hasn't done much to the naked eye, but he's still got 70 both weeks or thereabouts. And South don't have a bye for a long time. He'll be playing right through into Origin if he stays fit and not suspended. So I'm happy to be with Latrell. I don't like watching South games without having him. Ponga is out. Probably the most pointless trade-in of my life last week. He played all of 1 minute, got 1 point, and he's out again. Going to Ezra Mam. Now, I never thought I'd get Ezra Mam, to be honest, in Classic, but I've been very impressed by him the past 2 weeks. It was him or Walsh for me, and because I went to Latrell, I've gone to Mam at 6. Want to be with some Broncos players the next few weeks. And my final trade is just really a cash grab. Sean Blaw's out. I know he's starting this week, but Papali'i will be back soon. Bateman will be back soon. His job security is terrible at the Tigers. Blaw, Jacob Preston, starting for the Dogs, going to make about 100K or something. Seems like a no-brainer trade.
Okay, so coming back here and looking at your team, how it looks 1 through 25 as it is. But why don't you take us through some of the talking points? We'll start at the top as we always do. And Harry Grant, your captain from last week, retains that for now. And you mentioned at the top of the podcast as well that Turbo likely your vice captain. So that's the way you're playing the captaincy this week. And happy to be with Harry Grant again.
Yeah, Harry Grant, there's not a lot of obvious captains this week yet again. And Harry's good for at least a 70. Against the Titans, it could even be north of that. Not much else to speak of in terms of the forwards. It's pretty similar. Welch and Utokamanu, Fafita, Taumalolo, Hopgood. Taumalolo is one I would say may have to go next week. He's just not the same player he was on SuperCoach. Mm-hmm. He's awesome to watch, but he just doesn't get the scores. I think Cotter takes his work, perhaps. Schuster and Preston are both going to be playing on my bench this week. Happy to see Schuster named. Any questions about my forwards at all, or should I keep going?
No, I mean, that looks good, and obviously you're keeping some big guns there in for feeder as well. Harry Grant, look, I don't think you'll get rid of him come until Origin time, and Hopgood's doing a job, so why move him on? Popular trade-in, like you say there, Jacob Preston, he will be, and happy to be back with Schuster, like you say, back in the Manly 6, and expecting him to be feeding some of that ball to Turbo.
Yeah, exactly right. In the halves, I've kept Sam Walker, one Roosters player. He's gone well so far, 77 average, 92 last week. He will be going to Hines next week, though, I think, as long as I can afford it. It might take 2 trades to do so. Yep. I've kept Cleary there on my bench, so I'm pretty excited to have Cleary and Hines next week. That's the plan anyway. Dewey and Mam at 6, and then the backs have to stay the same. Holmes, Meaney, Hammer. Alamotti gets a start this week against the Tigers. I think he'll be popular as a playing option. Yep. And then at fullback, Turbo as vice captain on Thursday night, and Latrell joins the fold.
Talk us through Latrell, because he does have a big break even this week, but you think you're going around the break even? Like, there's obviously cheaper options there. You've already mentioned is Reece Walsh at fullback, but you're just sticking with the class horse here in Latrell, aren't you?
That's pretty much it. It's been 2 tough games so far for Souths and Latrell. He's got 73 and 62 in both of those. So if that's going to be his floor for the year or thereabouts, I'm very happy to be on him. He's averaged over 80 the past 2 years. He's a proven SuperCoach player, great goal kicker. I know I'm going to take a hit in terms of the money this week with his break even, but he's not a player I'm playing for cash. He's playing for points for me, so I'm happy to have him.
Yeah, okay, and money that he loses, he'll probably make it back come Origin time anyway, when you're likely to shift him on again. So, not a real concern there. Like we say, stay tuned to our Instagram on Thursday, 7 p.m. as we do our final team list. But this is the way that Tommy's thinking at the moment. So, looking good there. A juggling act, isn't it, between making cash and sticking with the top of the pack like you are, top 2%. You want to be playing the points game as well. You're happy with that? You must be after a couple of weeks, top 2%. Is this a team that can carry you forward for the next few weeks?
It's just going to be all about trades. I mean, I was up there last year and then I absolutely died in the arse in the last 6 weeks because I ran out of trades. So got to be careful with those. How are we looking at Fins and Tins HQ this week?
Yeah, look, there's been some movement, much the same as yourself, a boost this week. So 42 trades remaining, 4 trade boosts remaining, and more importantly, with one eye on Nicho Hynes, one eye on Nathan Cleary as well. 756,600 remaining salary. Like it is pretty much like having Cam Murray on your bench and not playing him. Look, it may seem stupid. You think I'm handicapping myself, and look, I probably have to agree with you, but that's just the way it's turned out. I'm just consolidating cash. I'm shifting James Tedesco. He's out with that break even of 135, I think it was. He's going to Reece Walsh. I'm happy to pull the trigger early on Reece. Just his involvement last week was just so encouraging, backed up what we saw from him in the trial as well. So happy to go a week early on Reece Walsh. Tom Dearden is out and goes to Hamasai Tabuo Fidel. Now this is via some duels. I think I've shifted Schuster to 6, Braden Williami up to 2RF, which means there's an open centre wing slot. That's where the hammer's going in. And in the back row, Sean Blore for Jacob Preston. That could be a popular move this week. So recapping, 42 trades remaining, 4 boosts remaining, and importantly there, as I say, one eye on next week, looking ahead to Cleary and Hynes. I'm going to need to get these guys in. $756,000 in the bank. This is how my team is, much the same as you. I'm sticking with Harry Grant for now. I think it's a fixture which sets up nicely for Harry to be captain once again. I haven't got Turbo back. Now, initially I was thinking I would get Turbo back. Started with him in round 1, traded him to Dewey in round 2, but sticking with Dewey there at 6. But from the top, Grant and Robson. Again, playing Robson, a high break even, but I'm happy to be with him in this run that the Cowboys have. Happy to stick with him. In the front row, Cotter and Welch, the mainstays there, much the same as Davi Mawali and Franklin Pele on the bench. 2 names that, look, you could go sideways or slightly up to Shaq Mitchell or Mark Nichols, but I don't really feel like trading these guys out. I just think they can sit there. Pele in the squad for the Dogs this week again, so seems to have that place locked down over Jaden Tanner. Second row forwards, playing Preston, straight into the team. Happy to sit Cartwright and Dury. As good as they've been, I think it's a tough fixture away to Manly. Manly could do a job on them, so happy to be with Preston here. Hopgood retains the vice-captaincy just in case he goes big again, and Teague Wilton there in the back row.
Yeah, look, I like it. It's amazing. You've got your 6 2RFs there, and the highest priced is Teague Wilton at $4.93. So you've gone very cheap in that slot. But I actually like your 6 options. They all score quite well. Maybe not Williami, but you're not going to play him anyway. No. So yeah, it's a different sort of strategy, I guess, to probably what a lot of people are doing. You've got no expensive players in that slot, but it's working so far for you, isn't it?
It is, and happy to hold on to Wilton for now. I think his break even still around, what is it? I'm just looking here, 25. So look, that's still manageable. He's got a couple of more weeks in him. You'll get Nicho Hynes back, hopefully. Hopefully that helps the Sharks attack even more so. So happy to be with Teague still. At halfback, Jerome Hughes, he's staying solid there for now. Sam Walker as well. Walker, break even of 25, just the sole reason why he gets one more week. I think he can make a little bit more cash on the pathway to Nicho Hynes. In the halves as well, 5'8", Dewey and Schuster, playing reserve, Josh Schuster at 5'8", number 2. And the backs here, from the back, Reece Walsh, fullback. Brimson hanging on to him for one more week at least before their run starts to turn. I think they have a bye as well, round 5 or 6. So holding on to Brimson over Dearden, a decision I had to make there. break even, just the decisive factor. In the centre wings, Valentine Holmes, Joseph Suali'i, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, and Paul Alamotti getting the start ahead of Khan Pereira and Will Warbrick this week. So hoping for some tries at Belmore on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, look, I saw him. I've got Alamotti and Preston also playing like you do. So we'll both be sitting there hoping the doggies do have a good day. My only question, and it's a big one with the backs, why have you gone Reece Walsh over Tommy Turbo?
Oh, I just like their run. I like their run a lot more. I think Manly, they have a couple of games coming up against, and you can probably tell me, I don't know off the top of my head. I remember looking at it and I thought Walsh, the next 4 or 5 weeks, like you say, they're all at Brisbane. Dolphins, Dragons, I think they have in the next fortnight, or not in that order, but just stacking them up, I think Walsh, he's going to play 80 if he's not injured. Turbo, as I said, he sat round 1. It was just a little bit concerning. He may not still be 100% Tommy Turbo. So, look, I may live to regret that, but I think given what I've seen last week, I think Reece Walsh has some upside there, and purely on fixtures, I think Brisbane will benefit more than Manly in the next 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, look, I think when you drill it down with the fixtures, you can definitely make a case that Walsh is a better buy than Turbo. I guess on face value, you see Turbo and you see Walsh at the same price or similar price, you probably think Turbo, just historically.
Yeah.
But I do know what you mean. But round 1 at $2.59, you change from Drinkwater to Turbo. Could we see a similar thing on Thursday night? We go to Walsh to Turbo, last second decision.
This is why you got to follow us on Instagram, isn't it? That's where you get all the good oil very, very late at SuperCoach365. Thursday night, 7 p.m, you'll see our final teams there, and you may well see Tom Trbojevic pop up. No, look, I think I'm sticking with Reece Walsh. I think I'm confident there to run with Reece Walsh. Okay, listener Q&As. We'll get into this very quickly. We will wrap this up. There's only one via the voice messages on Instagram this week. It's fine. It's a good one, and it comes in from Lil Melb X.
Hey lads, Little Melb X here, long time listener. I love the podcast. Keep up the great work. Please, love listening to it every single week. At the moment, I'm stuck on a trade, whether to hold Brennan Smith waiting on the team list Tuesday and then give him another chance, or swap him to Wade Egan like everyone else in SuperCoach, or hold him and then swap to Sonny Luke before the price rise. Cheers, lads.
Righto, thanks for getting in touch, mate. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So, look, great to have you on board. Hopefully you're back next week. Look, to sum all of that up, Brandon Smith, would you give him one more chance, named to play this week against Souths, high break even, or do you just get rid of him? Cut ties now, go to Wade Egan this week, or, again, give Cheese one more sniff. Sonny Luke next week, you cash down to Sonny. Look, there's a couple of options there. You just got to make the right call.
I don't think you can hold Brandon Smith. I really don't. Hasn't scored well so far. By next week, tough game. Even if he scores okay, he's still going to lose cash. I don't think there's a lot of reasons to keep him. Wade Egan, pretty random player to be discussing, but you're right. 99, 88 first 2 weeks. They don't have a buy for a long time. I think he's honestly got good merit to be included this week in a lot of people's teams. Sonny Luke, he only got 20, I think, so far when he played bigger minutes, against South on Thursday. So that wasn't great signs. What do you think about Sonny Luke? Because I'm a bit on the fence about him at the moment.
Yeah, look, we just all assumed after that try in round 1 that more minutes would equal more points for Sonny. It didn't. Tough game against South. I don't think they offer a lot in terms of SuperCoach acceptances through the middle. So maybe it was the opposition. He may get some easier games. For what it's worth, I'd be shifting Cheese. If you could get to Robbo or Grant somehow, I don't know. If you could do it like a 2-for-1 or in a trade boost, you'd go that way. But no, I wouldn't be going. Or Wade Egan, look, he's going to make a stack of cash, but do you want to be holding Wade Egan the whole year? Jazz Tavanga coming back soon. There's probably other names there. AJ Powell, to that point, asks us here, he says, best hooker to get in Classic, fuck the cheese.
Well, look, I'm still Team Grant, and I know you've liked what Robson's done so far. So if you're spending heaps of money, those two are the go, and I think you've got both of those.
Yeah.
But beyond that, mid-ranges, Wade Egan's the pick of the bunch at the moment. There's not a lot of great... How's Josh Hodgson going? I haven't been following him. Has he been all right?
Pretty average. He got about 30 last week.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
there's not really great options at 9, is there, really?
No, it's Grant or bust, or Robbo or bust. Like, even Robbo last week got 45 in the wet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just tough. So if you're not with Grant, there's not much upside anywhere else. Wade Egan, a couple of tries. I can get the sense here. I'm not going to talk anyone out of it. I'm just saying, think of the bigger picture. Okay, we'll get through a couple of these others here. I know Tommy's got to run. Alex Brigo here says, how good of a trade is Reece Walsh? Is he better than Teddy? How reliable do you see him being? I can answer this. Reliable. I think he's going to have his hands on the ball. Good footy in front of him. Good forward pack. Ezra Mam, the left side. Like, there's plenty of ticks there. A lot of games at home in Brisbane. I'm happy to be with him. I'm happy to go a week early, even still. Like, I want to get his points this week against the Dragons. I think he can do another job.
Yeah, great signs the other night and a great run coming up. It's pretty amazing we're having him in the same conversation as the likes of Teddy and Turbo.
Yep, Tommy, this one from Riley Milton 4. You can answer this. Your thoughts on Ezra Mam?
Similar to Reece Walsh, just in a different position. I mean, maybe Walsh has a slightly higher ceiling than Ezra Mam, but Ezra Mam's scoring, even last year, averaged 55 in his debut season. Broncos with a great run coming up, and there's not many good 6 options out there at the moment. So I think there's a big lot of reasons to get him.
Yeah, even Dewey and Burton haven't performed where we wanted them to be. You're playing that mid-range 5'8", so Ezra a good option. Adam Blundell says, thoughts on Jay Carraz? Is he a trap? You're a massive fan of Carraz, but would you buy him at that price?
Oh, I am a big fan. I have him in draft, which is exciting this week when I beat Ryan. But in Classic, I don't know. He's just that awkward price, isn't he?
Yeah. Big fan of him, though. Dale Weeks 26 says, is it too early to be using a boost, boys, to secure those cheap players to make money, e.g. Asako and Hammer? You and I are both using boost this week. It probably answers that question.
I think when you've got 5 boosts, this is a big week to use one. I think you weren't even sure if you had 3 or 5 and you still were going to use one. So yeah. I think we're pretty keen to use one this week.
A couple of others here from Mitch Muscat. Do I grab the cash or take keepers? Sorry, I'm stuttering my words tonight. Do I grab cash or take sleepers? Currently have Burton. Will trade to Ezra Mam for cash. I think that answers that question. And you're going Mam for the same reasons?
I think so. Burton, even the other night, dominant performance. He only got 30 points. So it's not very... The writing's on the wall a bit for him.
Another one here from Matt93. He says, Brento to Ruben Garrick. Would you do Garrick this week? The bye's out of the way. High ceiling player. Brian on that right side, not what we'd probably be hoping for from his output.
Yeah, I love Tyler Garrick personally. I'm not in the position to get Garrick, but if I was, I'd be going to him.
Another one here from Lockie Hodson at the top. He says, Pele to Shaq Mitt or Ford to Carty or Schuster. So I'm assuming he's traded in Ford last week. No, I'd be holding Ford. It's just sideways, and Carty Party could be out next week. Schuster, we're still yet to see what he's like at 6 ongoing. Answer that first one, though. Franklin Pele to Shaq Mitchell.
How's Shaq been going? I know he's been going well when I'm watching the Souths play. I don't know how his scoring has been. Probably higher than Pele, who isn't doing a lot.
Yeah.
But can you really use a trade on people like that at the moment? I feel like there's bigger fish to fry, maybe, like more important parts of your team to fix.
Agree. He's been scoring 50s, but I think there's other fires there that you probably could and should be putting out. One more here. 2 more, actually. Rugby League says, fuck Kalen Ponga. I think it says it all. That's not a question. It's a statement. I love it. Okay, last one here. There's a couple here. We're going to consolidate a few of these. A couple about Nathan Cleary, the Cleary Chaos from Ben RT. Another one, Papa Webb says, Cleary, it's time to go. Maybe instead of answering that, Tommy, do the counter argument. Why are you holding Cleary still?
History pretty much sums it up. He's been good for so long. Penrith have had a slowish start to the year. They're still good the other night. I just think you trade out someone like Nathan Cleary at your peril.
Yeah.
I think you'll still be easily in the top 2 halfbacks come the end of the year on SuperCoach by like head and shoulders above the rest. So don't panic.
Absolutely, don't panic. We said here last week, don't panic. Just don't rage trade. You've got 25 weeks beyond that one to make up for it. Trust me, watching Nathan Cleary as a non-owner, it's not an enjoyable experience. I wouldn't advise it. Tommy, we're going to leave it there tonight. Bumper episode. Again, ahead of round 3, and he's hoping for more green arrows next week, and improving upon this good start. We've got to consolidate it.
Absolutely good stuff for both of us, but a long way to go and plenty of money to make this week, both using our boosts.
Stay Stay tuned on the socials at SuperCoach365. Please subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Thumbs up, like, comment, all of that. And if you are on the podcast, a 5-star review, please and thank you. Thursday night footy, Seagulls and Eels, they kick us off for bumper round 3. Same place, same time next week. Here, SuperCoach365 podcast. See you then.